They discovered the shocking divide between living by the flesh or the Spirit in Galatians 5. Few knew what truly happened that night in the heart of Jerusalem. A gathering of believers leaned closer, their faces lit by flickering torches. The air thick with tension, electricity buzzing like a summer storm. They whispered, exchanging glances filled with fear and hope. It was the eve of the feast. The city pulsed with life. Street vendors shouted, trying to lure in the last customers, while families scurried home, their arms laden with goods. But within this bubbling chaos lay a secret that threatened to tear them apart. Was it the Spirit they pursued, or had they all succumbed to the flesh? In a dim corner of the market, a man named Paul stood alone. His eyes burned with a truth he could hardly express. He had seen miracles. He had tasted glory. But reality gripped him tightly. A battle raged within. Live by the flesh, indulging in fleeting desires, or live by the Spirit, a path filled with trials yet full of promise. What would be his choice? As he pondered, shadows flickered across his thoughts. He felt the pull of his past temptations whispering sweet nothings, calling him back to a life of ease. But each moment drew him deeper into a revelation. He recalled the scars on his hands, the beatings he had endured, the chains that once bound him, all for the sake of a truth that could save them, could save him. Around him, murmurs rose like a tide. Other believers gathered, their faces etched with uncertainty. They sought answers, but questions hung in the air like dense fog. Is the law a burden or a guide? Can love truly conquer all? Hesitation pulsed through the crowd. Was faith truly enough? Then, just as a crisp breeze swept through the square, a voice rang out, bold and unyielding. We cannot walk as those who are dead in sin. A gasp rippled through them. Hearts quickened. Eyes widened. The statement hung alive in the night, vibrating with significance. They were on the cusp of something monumental. But just as the tension reached its peak, uncertainty gripped each heart. What would be the cost of true freedom? Would they lose everything, or would they find what they had long sought? As the night pressed on, a choice loomed large, one that would change them forever. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the moon rose higher in the sky, casting ethereal shadows upon the cobblestone streets of Jerusalem, Paul felt the weight of every paired glance around him. They were all searching, yearning, their souls ensnared in the fragile interplay of hope and despair. What does it mean to live by the Spirit? He wondered, the question echoing in the silence of their shared moment. Suddenly, a woman stepped forward, her voice trembling yet fervent. What if we have been wrong? What if the Spirit does not leave us in comfort but calls us to the chaos of sacrifice? Her hands, roughened by labor, gestured to the thrumming city around them. Are we prepared to face the hostility of the world? The crowd stilled as they considered her words. Paul sensed the longing within them for understanding, the desire to strip away the layers of their confusion and reveal a path illuminated by truth. This was no ordinary night. It was a crossroads. From the shadows, another voice emerged. We have seen the miracles, but have we asked what they cost our hearts? Can we embrace the Spirit while clinging to the flesh? His words were heavy, weighted with the experience of loss. Many of us have families who do not understand our calling. Would we forsake them for the sake of the gospel? Each syllable struck like a hammer upon the anvil of their collective fears. They each recalled moments of isolation, times when their faith had seemed more like a burden than a liberation. Was embracing the Spirit a path of conflict with those they loved? Would they be seen as zealots, as misguided souls in pursuit of an illusion? As the questions loomed larger, Paul felt a stirring within him. The answers were not to be found in the comfort of expectation but in the tension of their choices. He stood, his heart pounding, sensing a divine inspiration build within. Brothers and sisters, he called, his urgency palpable. Let us not fear the turmoil of sacrifice. Instead, let us embrace it as the crucible that forms us. What we are fighting against is not flesh and blood, but the very darkness that seeks to bind us. The words catalyzed a ripple of unrest through the gathering. Some shifted uneasily, while others nodded in agreement. They were grappling with an unseen realisha mystery that permeated their existence, challenging the very foundation upon which they stood. Can we dance between two worlds? A voice murmured from the back, a question teetering on the edge of despair. How can we trust in a spirit we cannot see, and still navigate a world filled with tangible needs? A heavy silence blanketed them again, a moment suspended between doubt and faith. The question hung in the air like a delicate thread, and Paul felt its weight pressing down on him. He thought of the cost of discipleship, the sacrifices made by those who had preceded them. Had they all faced the same tug-of-war between the immediate and the eternal? Suddenly, a child's laughter echoed down the alley, sharp and achingly joyous, reminiscent of innocence untainted by the tumult of life. It beckoned to them a stark contrast to their brooding thoughts. Paul's heart swelled as he recognized in that laughter a reminder of the pure, unadulterated connection with the Spirit that was available to all, even amidst the struggles. What if, he pondered aloud, the Spirit is not merely an alternative to our trials, but a companion amid them? What if we were to transform our very understanding of freedom not as the absence of suffering, but as the presence of unwavering love? The crowd murmured, their expressions shifting from doubt to intrigue. Yet questions still lapped at their minds. Would they dare to embrace this understanding? Could they collectively step into the unknown and trust in a guidance that was veiled yet palpably near? As the evening deepened, shadows danced around them, whispering, "What price must we pay for true freedom?" The inquiry lingered, unresolved, pulsating with possibility. As dawn began to paint the sky with gentle hues of pink and gold, the air was thick with anticipation. The gathering that had formed the night before had not dispersed. Instead, they lingered, their hearts yearning to discover the truth of their dilemmas. Paul observed the faces around him, pale from the moonlit night, yet alight with a fervor that he recognized as divine inspiration. He pondered the child's laughter that still echoed in his mind, its pure simplicity cutting through the complex web of adult fears and uncertainties. How do we return to that laughter? He thought. How do we embody the Spirit that calls us to joyous freedom, rather than paralysis by fear? One woman, her eyes reflecting a deep well of sorrow, stepped forward once more. Can we truly be guided by a spirit we cannot see? Is faith not a struggle against the palpable chains of our existence? Her voice broke with the weight of doubt. Paul felt his resolve stirring again. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, he began, recalling the words written long ago by those who walked before him. It is a light in the darkness, illuminating the path even when the way seems unclear. We must learn to listen, to feel the breath of the Spirit whispering through our doubts that he beckoned them to close their eyes, to take a breath together, a collective inhale of the air filled with expectancy, followed by an exhale released into the void of uncertainty. In this stillness, he said, we allow the Spirit to envelop us. We invite a reality beyond our understanding, a reality that exists not in the visible but in the profound silent pulse of creation. As they breathed together, the atmosphere shifted. The lingering heaviness that had weighed on their hearts began to lift, replaced with a sense of unity, a collective spirit of fragile thread weaving between them, forming a tapestry of vulnerability and hope. I can feel something, a young man stated, his voice barely above a whisper. It's like there's a fire here, but it doesn't burn. Instead, it warms. Paul nodded, encouraged by the openness that was dawning among them. Yes, that warmth is the Spirit awakening within us. It gently guides us through our fears, reminding us that we are not alone in our struggles. We are called to a deeper understanding of what it means to live, to sacrifice, and to love. What if, another voice interrupted, tentative yet brave, The Spirit leads us into the very heart of conflict, not away from it. What then? How do we reconcile the chaos with the call? The crowd shifted uneasily, as a wave of leafy uncertainty rustled among them. Paul recognized the truth in that question. It was thick with the very essence of their trials. Is it not in the heart of the conflict that we discover the richness of our faith? Each challenge invites us to step closer to the Spirit, to explore the spaces between comfort and sacrifice. He responded, feeling the weight of their collective moment. A new depth engulfed the gathering as they began to share their fears and dreams, allowing the spirit of camaraderie to weave its threads tighter. Each testament faced the mystery head-on. Families torn apart over choices made in faith, hearts hesitant to embrace the chaos because of past wounds, and dreams that seemed to shimmer just beyond reach. Perhaps our greatest act of faith, Paul suggested, his voice imbued with softness, is not merely to endure the struggle but to confront it, to ask the hard questions. What does it mean to bear one another's burdens? How do we allow the Spirit to redefine our conflicts? In that moment, a flicker of shared understanding sparked within the crowd, lingering in the possibility of their conversations. Faces brightened with questions unformed yet seeding a desire to journey together into the heart of the Spirit's calling. What illnesses fester in the shadows of conflict? What transformations await them on the other side of their fears, should they choose to embrace the Spirit fully? The unanswered questions danced in the morning light, as hope shone like the rising sun. As the sun climbed higher, weaving gold through the fabric of the morning, the gathering felt its warmth replace the chill of dawn's lingering shadows. Paul's words hung in the air, their potency crafting an invisible circle of connection among them. The hum of newfound understanding rippled through those assembled, but deeper questions lingered, questions that wove through their hearts like roots through earth, seeking nourishment. With a collective sigh, a man named Samuel spoke, his voice robust yet tinged with uncertainty. Is it enough to feel this warmth together? Can it truly mend our fractured lives and the world around us? His gaze pierced through the veil of the gathering, searching for reassurance. Yes, Paul replied, feeling a swell of excitement akin to the fire the young man had described. But the journey does not end in shared warmth or fleeting moments of insight. It is a pilgrimage into the eternal, where each of our lives is a testimony, and each conflict is an invitation to dance intimately with the Spirit. A woman named Miriam, known for her wisdom in the community, interjected with a contemplative tone. But what does this dance look like? How do we distinguish the voice of the Spirit from our desires, our fears, or even our pride? The line between living by the flesh and living by the Spirit can seem painfully thin. Paul paused, allowing the question to settle like the morning dew atop the grass, inviting deeper contemplation. Living by the Spirit means surrendering our vision of how things should be, embracing instead a faith that questions, that seeks God in the midst of our struggles. It involves choosing vulnerability over the urge to control, embodying love even when it feels like an uphill battle. He shared, his heart resonating with the weight of the moment. Samuel, visibly wrestling with the ideas, softened his stance. But what if, like the Apostle Paul spoke of, we find ourselves in conflict with the very nature of our desires? What does that internal struggle look like? Paul reflected on the teachings he had come to cherish. It is akin to a war, my friend, a war not of flesh and blood, but of spirit and truth. Each time we choose the higher call, we confront the flesh, awakening echoes of temptation, doubt, and fear. However, the Spirit beckons us to rise beyond these chains, inviting us into realms of grace where true transformation begins. The crowd listened, drawn into his words as if riding on the wings of revelation. The atmosphere crackled with curiosity, but from deep within, an undercurrent of fear stumbled through the cracks of understanding. Could they really face their own struggles, their own desires, and emerge transformed? What if, whispered a young girl from the back, her voice a tender thread in the gathering's fabric, the way of the Spirit leads us to uncomfortable truths about ourselves? What if we must confront the darkness within before we can shine the light of faith outward? A solemn hush engulfed them, holding those words like a fragile bird. Paul found himself captivated by her sincerity, wondering how deeply these insights could resonate in their lives. Indeed, he mused, there is a sacred courage needed to gaze into the mirror of our souls. It is often in that very confrontation that we discover not only our flaws but the infinite mercy waiting to embrace us. With that, the murmur of confessions began anew, confessions from men and women who had battled their inner demons, sharing scars that were testimonies of resurrection. Each story added a brushstroke to the canvas of their collective struggle. One man spoke of greed that had robbed him of joy. Another shared heartache from relationships strained by pride, as darkness unveiled itself in the light of their shares. Paul felt the gravity of their stories, heavy yet rich with potential. Our struggles, he reminded them, are not to be hidden but embraced. All of us are called to bear each other's burdensome model grace through our honesty and vulnerability. Only then can we become conduits of the Spirit's love in a world that so desperately needs it. Together they lingered on that thought, the gentle pull of hope threading through their uncertainty. What would it take for them to recognize the divide between the flesh and the spirit within themselves? How might their willingness to face their shadows herald a resurrection not only in their lives but in the lives they touched? The questions hung in the air, pregnant with possibility, as they waited for the Spirit to guide them further along their journey into the light, still shrouded in the unfolding mystery. In the gathering's softened glow, the spirit of vulnerability swirled like a gentle breeze, yet a lingering tension lay beneath the surface. Despite their confessions, the path forward seemed obscured by a veil of doubt, a fog that whispered insidious questions. How would they proceed knowing the fragility of the flesh and the brilliance of the spirit? Paul sensed the gravity of their uncertainty and sought to anchor their hearts. Consider the fruits of this journey, he suggested, his voice firm yet inviting. When we walk in the Spirit, the manifestations in our lives will speak a harvest of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control will abound. These are not mere traits to aspire to but divine gifts that flow through us when we yield to the Spirit's guidance. A murmur of intrigue fluttered through the crowd. Could life genuinely embody such vibrancy? Tom, an elder with sun-weathered skin and wise eyes, stepped forward, a question dancing in his heart. But, Paul, how can we recognize these fruits? What assurance do we have that our efforts aren't in vain? Often, I feel as if I'm grasping at shadows, unsure whether I'm truly following the Spirit or getting lost in my ambitions. Paul regarded Tom with understanding, sensing the weight of his question. Tom, it begins within. This discovery is a journey of the heart. To discern the Spirit's leading, we must cultivate intimacy with God. In prayer and Scripture, we find clarity. Furthermore, it is through community that we sharpen one another, holding ourselves accountable, and reminding each other of the beauty inherent in our shared struggles. Miriam leaned forward, her brow furrowed in contemplation. So, in seeking unity and connection, we may confront the very interwoven threads of our brokenness? Are we to believe that love and compassion can heal what divides us? Yes, Paul affirmed, feeling an unquenchable hope rise within him. True healing springs forth when we embrace our reality together rather than retreat into isolation. Are we ready to echo the gospel in our vulnerability, allowing it to reshape our lives? This surrender, though daunting, becomes our liberation. A young man named Elijah, his eyes wide with fervor, inquired, what if we falter? What if we slip back into living by the flesh when faced with trials? Paul's gaze softened, recognizing the fear that wove through the gathering. My dear friend, the path is not linear. We will falter, but therein lies grace, God's unending mercy, gathered like dew every morning. It is our return that reveals the truth of our hearts. Each stumble can become a stepping stone if we allow ourselves to rise again, with the Spirit's guidance leading us forth. That as dusk brushed the horizon with hues of orange and pink, the gathering sat together in heavy contemplation. A stirring awareness arose within them, a collective yearning to explore the tapestry of their lives, entwining pain, joy, and possibility. Clarity skimmed the edges of their understanding, yet uncertainty still loomed. At that charged moment, young Esther, whose voice had been shy thus far, finally ventured forth, trembling. But how do we embrace this grace? How do we know if we are truly living by the Spirit, especially when the world often feels chaotic and confusing? The air thickened with her question, each heart mirroring her apprehension. Paul took a deep breath, letting the moment linger. Perhaps, dear friends, a part of our journey is learning to dance with the questions rather than shying away from them. As we pursue the heart of God, we shall discover the Spirit's whispers resonating in our lives, not always through clarity, but often through the fog of uncertainty. A sense of shared vulnerability rippled through the group, but the question lingered. In the depths of their struggles, could they find comfort in the indistinct, embracing both the flesh and the spirit? What courage might they find in their willingness to dwell in the unknowing, where the true nature of their faith continued to unfurl? The stars began to twinkle. Overhead, a silent witness to their journey, echoing their yearning for understanding and connection. In the stillness of the night, as each person clung to their thoughts, the stars gleamed above like distant promises, shimmering reminders of a greater purpose. The gathering carried a weight of contemplation, their hopes and fears weaving into a shared narrative that stoked a familiar ache within their hearts. Each soul bore the burden of seeking, and now they stood on the threshold of a daunting choice: to remain in the comforting darkness of the known or step into the unpredictable light of the Spirit. As the murmurs settled, Paul prepared to delve deeper into the mystery that loomed before them, a mystery echoing the scribe's wisdom. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? This ancient truth resonated, reminding them of their propensity to cling to the familiar, even when the fruits of their lives withered like autumn leaves. We have been called to something greater than mere survival. He began again, his voice steady, imbued with the earnestness of purpose. Let's reflect on the tension you rightly feel, Paul continued, his eyes sweeping across the faces illuminated by flickering torchlight. Living by the flesh leads us to pursue our desires, fleeting and insatiable as they may be, while living by the Spirit beckons us toward a realm filled with life and peace. The contrast is stark, and understanding it is key to our journey. Esther felt emboldened. Can we speak of what it means to live by the Spirit? You make it seem so clear, yet I find the boundaries slippery. Does it require the complete surrender of our desires? Are we to deny our humanity? A flicker of warmth ignited within Paul as he recognized her struggle. Ah, sweet Esther, it is not an eradication of your humanity but a transformation of it. The flesh seeks to dominate, to assert itself, yet the Spirit invites us into partnership. When we surrender our desires to the Spirit, we find our true selves blossoming. Only in that yielding do our lives begin to resonate with the echoes of Christ's love. Tom interjected gently, and what of our shortcomings? Do they count against us in this pursuit? If we are frail vessels, how can we expect to reflect the beauty of the Spirit? Indeed, Paul replied, a solemnity gracing his features. Our shortcomings unveil the depth of grace we so fiercely cling to. When we stumble, we stand not as failures but as testaments to God's persistent love. It is in our brokenness that we can experience the fullness of the Spirit, for it is not our perfection that draws us closer to Him, but our humble acknowledgement of need. Can we embrace our faults as invitations to deeper communion with God? Elijah, inspired yet cautious, posed another question. And in embracing this grace, how do we discern the moments when we are truly walking in the Spirit? It feels elusive at times, overshadowed by our burdens and sins. Ah, the dance continues, Paul replied, a soft chuckle escaping him. It may not always be evident when we are in tune with the Spirit, but the fruits we bear will be our indicators. Fear not the uncertainty. Instead, learn to lean on your brothers and sisters. As iron sharpens iron, let your shared experiences illuminate the path ahead. Community becomes a mirror, helping you recognize the Spirit's touch upon your life. As the conversation flourished, a palpable hope began to envelop them. Yet, a lingering shadow remained. Could they forge ahead into this spiritual abyss together without losing themselves? The question remained, echoing in the stillness. In their pursuit of intimacy with the Spirit, would they even recognize the flesh still clinging to their hearts, ever eager to reclaim its dominance? As the stars twinkled overhead like watchful eyes, the gathering continued to navigate the complexities of faith and desire. A tension hung in the air, an unspoken burden felt by all, a divide twisted deep in their hearts that needed illumination. While the night cradled their deliberations, the Spirit stirred within each person, urging them to delve deeper into the mysteries unveiled thus far. The flicker of their torches mirrored the ebbs and flows of their conversation, and Paul took a moment to allow the silence to settle. It is vital, dear friends, that we confront the stark reality of the choices set before us. The Scriptures are our guide, and in Galatians 5 we are warned of the conflict between the flesh and the Spirit, a war that plays out within each of us. Esther leaned closer, her eyes reflecting the light, eager to grasp the teachings. And those fruits you spoke of, what exactly are they? How do they manifest in our lives? Her voice carried a curiosity laced with urgency, for knowing these truths felt essential to the journey ahead. With a nod of acknowledgement, Paul began to enumerate: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are the fruits birthed from a life led by the Spirit. They are not merely virtues to be achieved but reflections of the Spirit's very nature within us. When we align ourselves with Him, these qualities begin to flow naturally, nourishing our spirits like the gentle rain upon thirsty soil. Tom pondered the idea, his brow furrowed in thought. But how do we cultivate these fruits in a world that seems to drown out the Spirit's voice? The flesh pulls us in so many directions, demanding instant gratification and often leaving us empty. But therein lies the mystery, Paul responded, a faint smile playing on his lips. Our human condition is an endless battleground of desires. Yet the key lies in recognizing where our true fulfillment derives. The more we pursue the Spirit, the more we find ourselves with joyful hearts, even amidst chaos. It's a radical trust that embraces the unseen, believing that surrender to the Spirit offers a canvas on which our lives can be painted anew. Elijah interjected, a flicker of hope gleaming in his eyes. So, it is rather an ongoing journey, to seek the Spirit daily, to cultivate that relationship, and to be aware of the fruits we bear. Should we then expect to see an emerging testament of that relationship within our community? Yes, Paul exclaimed, encouragingly. In fact, it is the witness of your love for one another that shines the brightest amidst the strife. It is through serving and uplifting each other that the God of all grace is magnified. The community becomes a living testament of the Spirit's transformative power. As they contemplated this collective responsibility, a weighty silence filled the space, enveloping them in a realization. The call to embrace the Spirit was not merely for individual enlightenment, but a summons to reflect God's love as a cohesive body. Yet lingering beneath that hopeful understanding was an uncertainty: would they truly be able to surrender their personal desires in favor of collective hope? In their quest to become vessels of the Spirit, could they navigate the treacherous waters of self-interest? The question hung in the air, igniting a deeper inquiry within their hearts. As they strive to embody the fruits of the Spirit, would they remain vigilant against the subtle whispers of the flesh, or would they be overtaken by its allure once more? As the dawn began to stretch its golden fingers across the horizon, the gathering felt the coolness of the night giving way to the warmth of the day. The gentle rustling of leaves whispered secrets as if nature itself was attuned to their conversation. Paul, sensing the transition, encouraged them to consider the significance of this new beginning, a fresh opportunity for reflection and commitment. Dear friends, he began, his voice resonating with a soft urgency. As the sun rises, let us take this moment to ponder the nature of our choices. The struggle between the flesh and the Spirit is not merely an external conflict, but a profound internal dialogue. In these quiet hours, we are called to examine not just what we desire, but why we desire it. Esther, still reflecting on their previous discussions, looked pensively toward the rising sun. But how do we begin to discern which desires are born from the flesh and which are inspired by the Spirit? There are times when the two seem intertwined, indistinguishable from one another. Paul nodded, appreciating her inquiry. A noble pursuit indeed. The answer lies in knowing the heart. The Spirit speaks through a whisper of peace, while the flesh often clamors for instant satisfaction. It's important to ask ourselves, does this desire lead to life, or does it draw us away from our communion with God and each other? Elijah pondered Paul's words, his brow furrowing deeper. Yet, what if we struggle to hear that whisper? What if the noise of the world is too loud? Many around us seem to have no trouble pursuing fleshly desires, whether in pursuit of wealth, status, or personal pleasure. In contrast, our journey towards spiritual fulfillment can often feel lonely and fraught with resistance. Indeed, it may appear so, Paul acknowledged, his gaze sweeping across the faces of his companions. But remember, the path of the Spirit is often countercultural. You may feel like outcasts at times, but there lies your strength. In embracing humility and vulnerability, you deepen your capacity for community life. The fruits of the Spirit are cultivated not in isolation, but in the shared experience of love and grace. Tom leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. We've spoken of the fruits we wish to bear. It seems to me that it requires a deliberate shift in how we engage with one another. Are we truly ready to cultivate a community that reflects those qualities, even when our own preferences pull us in different directions? Paul's eyes sparkled with encouragement. A wise observation, Tom. The act of nurturing those fruits demands commitment, patience, and ultimately, a willingness to serve beyond ourselves. It requires us to recognize that we are not merely refining our individual lives, but weaving together a tapestry of grace. When the flesh tempts you to indulge in self-interest, remember the vision of love and self-sacrifice exhibited by Christ. An uncomfortable silence filled the air as the weight of their collective commitment dawned on them. The comfort of individual pursuits was alluring. The challenge of community called for a level of surrender that felt daunting. What if we falter? Esther finally asked, the vulnerability in her voice piercing the tension. What if we fail to embody the Spirit's love as we strive towards this vision? Fear not, for the journey itself is sacred, Paul responded gently. Even our missteps can enrich our understanding and deepen our connection to Him and to one another. Each struggle teaches us more about grace. Remember, the Spirit intercedes for us in moments of weakness. Our journey is one of continual learning and growth, with hope illuminated by every small act of kindness we offer along the way. As they embraced this thought, the rising sun painted the sky in shades of hope. Yet still, they felt that unsettling question lingering in the depths of their hearts. Would they find the courage to stand united in their pursuit of the Spirit? Or would the pull of individual desires keep them shackled to a life of discord? They turned their eyes to the horizon, reflecting upon the mystery of divine guidance, wondering what they had yet to discover about themselves and each other in the days to come. As the morning air thickened with an energy that spoke of new beginnings, the group sat in silence, each member lost in their own thoughts, the golden light casting elongated shadows across their faces. Paul's words resonated within them, but uncertainty still lingered like morning mist refusing to dissipate. I think, broke the silence Elijah, that we often underestimate the weight of our choices. It's as if we forget that each decision, no matter how small, can lead us either toward the Spirit or deeper into the flesh. He paused, gazing at the ground as if seeking answers in the dirt. Isn't that what the struggle is truly about? The accumulation of seemingly insignificant moments that, in the end, shape our character? Indeed, affirmed Paul, his gaze steady on Elijah. Each choice carries with it the potential to lift us closer to divine love or pull us away into darkness. The Apostle Paul describes this struggle vividly, contrasting those who walk according to the Spirit with those who are ruled by their own desires. It's a battle for the very essence of our being. Esther, finding herself warmed by the shared vulnerability, ventured further. But are we not also influenced by our environment? Surely the culture is powerful, shaping desires that don't reflect God's intentions for us. How can we resist the tides that insist we seek fulfillment outside of His promise? Paul nodded, validating her concern. You speak truthfully, Esther. Our surroundings do play a significant role in our spiritual journey. It is easy to become entangled in the ways of the world when those very ways appear successful to our eyes. This tension is why community becomes even more vital. We are to encourage one another to seek the higher calling, to remind each other of the life that leads to true peace and joy. Tom, still interlaced in thought, interjected with newfound clarity. So, we shouldn't merely focus on what tempts us, but also on what strengthens us, what feeds the spirit within. Gathering together in seeking the divine presence, perhaps that is where we truly discover the strength to choose wisely. Precisely, Paul exclaimed, his voice rising with enthusiasm. Our gatherings, our prayers, and our acts of service to one another are what reinforce our commitment. But we must also remain vigilant, for complacency can lead us to stray. Reflect on your daily routines. Are they filled with practices that draw you nearer to God, or do they lead you into patterns of distraction? The question hung heavily in the air. Some found themselves contemplating their daily lives, perhaps a moment of tension in personal relationships, or time spent in pursuits of entertainment rather than edifying tasks. It was clear that self-examination was necessary for growth. As if sensing their internal battles, Paul leaned in, his voice gentle yet compelling. Let us remember that we are not alone in this. The Spirit, our Comforter, remains with us, nudging and guiding us toward that which aligns with love and truth. Even in our struggles, there lies an opportunity for redemption and new beginnings. But even as Paul spoke such comforting words, doubt lingered within them. Would they have the strength to make the right choices amid their uncertainties? Would they find the courage to support each other through the fog of conflicting desires? Elijah, with a furrowed brow, posed a question that hung like a delicate thread in a vast chasm. And if we should falter, if we should yield to the flesh, what then? Will grace cover our missteps, or will we become lost in that divide? This question, untouched and raw, echoed around the circular confrontation of the heart. The sun climbed higher, illuminating the beauty of nature, yet the shadows of their concerns deepened. They could sense the weight of this journey ahead. The reality dawned on them, for their united quest was just beginning. A reflective exploration filled with uncertainty and hope. In the search for spiritual alignment, they stood on the precipice of greater understanding. Yet the question remained, would they embrace the transformative power of the Spirit in their lives, or would the delicate threads of flesh lead them astray? As the sun began its ascent, casting golden rays across the heart of Jerusalem, Paul observed the faces of his companions, marked by uncertainty, yet gilded with a flicker of hope. Each heart bore the reverberations of their dialogue, the essence of their struggles mingling with aspirations for a shared future. They hovered at the edge of transformation, the dawn blanketing them in warmth, a prelude to a revelation that awaited. Friends, he began, his voice steady yet intimate. This journey toward the Spirit demands courage but also grace. We are a tapestry woven together, and it is through the power of our collective faith that we can emerge into the light. The air shimmered with possibility as their eyes reflected newfound resolve. The journey, though steeped in shadows, promised a banquet of understanding, a feast of unity striding beyond mere existence into vibrant life. Let us consider, Paul went on, the very nature of our struggle. Each moment of doubt, each inclination toward the flesh, serves not merely as a temptress but as an invitation to deeper intimacy with God. To falter does not spell doom. Rather, it lays bare our humanity, revealing a rhythm of grace that rescues us from despair. Voices began to fill the air, each member contributing to the collective tapestry. They mourned the fabrications of their desires, each confession pulling down the walls that once shielded their vulnerabilities. As they spoke of the flesh's allure, fear, greed, pride, it became clear that the power of the community was to hold these truths gently, offering love and understanding in return. From the crowd of believers, Miriam found her voice again, laced with fervor. Then it is not merely about individual choices, but how we walk together as witnesses to the Spirit, uplifting one another amid struggles. Yes, Paul exclaimed, heartened by the ignition of their connection. Your journey will not just be personal struggle. It will be a testimony, a living testament of hope. By entering into each other's burdens, you embody love. When you stand together against the tide of a world filled with distractions, you reflect the very heart of Christ. As the words hung in the air like fragrant incense, a beautiful transformation began to unfold. The highest ideals of love, peace, and grace danced among them, a divine tapestry challenging the mundane. Their shared heartbeat resonated in unison, echoing the promises spoken long ago. Yet still, The question loomed large. Would they embrace this calling into vulnerability? Elijah, emboldened by the spirit of conversation, responded genuinely. So, in those moments when we stumble upon desires that awaken the flesh, we can recognize them as opportunities to seek his face anew. Instead of sinking into despair, we can confront our flaws with the confidence that comes from grace. Indeed, Paul affirmed, a smile breaking the surface of his intensity. The Spirit operates in a realm beyond our understanding, inviting you into a love that transforms. Each struggle is a brush stroke on the canvas of your life, reflecting not just your shortcomings but also marking the extraordinary beauty of God's redemption. As awareness spread, the crowd found unity in the understanding that they were not alone in their journeys. Let us also remember, Paul continued, gesturing to the heart of the city bustling with life, the essence of our faith is lived out in action. Compassion becomes the manifestation of the Spirit among us. We are called to be conduits of love in a world that yearns for truth. Let our lives reflect the beauty of His grace. At that moment, the gathering exhaled a collective sigh, a release of the burdens they had carried in isolation. Hope filled their hearts, and it was as if the very air around them shimmered with newfound clarity and purpose. Miriam dared to suggest, shall we serve as lights in a world rife with shadows? Can we emerge as vessels of the Spirit's love, embodying the fruits that reflect Him? Paul sensed the mighty swell of agreement growing among them, a bond forged through their shared vulnerabilities. Yes, embrace the call to love, for love ignites connection. May our lives be a testament to peace, patience, and kindness, not only within these walls but spilling forth into the streets of Jerusalem, illuminating lives shadowed by despair. As the sun blazed higher, breaking through the remnants of the night, the gathering felt a palpable shift, a collective awakening to a divine purpose. Eager hearts began recounting stories of sacrifice, acts of love witnessed in their midst. They dreamed of nurturing bonds that transcended the personal, moving into the realm of the miraculous, a community animated by the Spirit. Suddenly, a vision unfurled within Paul's heart, a gathering of believers moving out, arms intertwined with loved ones, laughter echoing through the streets. A collective of souls breathing life where death had once reigned. 2 decades from that moment, he foresaw a family finding solace in the Spirit, tearing down walls of division, igniting hope where none seemed possible. He looked deeper into the eyes of those around him, now shimmering with the promise of their potential. Let our testimony reverberate throughout the ages, a reminder that faith yields with every step toward love. Moments of struggle will remain, but with every choice made in the Spirit's embrace, we could become the echo of light. Together we can show a world seeking solace that it is indeed through surrender and grace that true transformation lies. As he spoke, doubt melted beneath the weight of their collective resolve to emerge, not just as individuals but as a unified body of believers, one that witnessed the empowered promise of the Spirit and addressed the discord bent on distracting them from their mission. In that sacred moment, a newfound realization swept through the gathering. The stakes of their journey had never been so clear. This wasn't just about living their lives or navigating the shadows of doubt. It was a call to manifest the love of God, to represent that boundless grace through their lives. Well then, Paul encouraged, heart swelling with full expectation, let us journey into the day ahead, hearts joined in service. Let us illuminate dark corners with vibrant faith and poured out love. Our commitments united through the Spirit will conquer the allure of the flesh. A collective cheer echoed through their gathering as a wave of spirited energy burst forth. The resolve within each soul began anchoring their hearts deeper into the embrace of faith. The transformative pull of the Spirit would no longer evade them. Thus, they stepped into the world, faces brightened by the collective light of a promise that echoed far beyond the walls of their fears. Each step forward toward love rendered a path lined with infinite possibility, a testament to their becoming not merely a gathered community, but a living body of believers empowered by the Spirit. As their voices intertwined with the rhythm of the city, their hearts resonating as one, they chose to embrace the divine journey, the call to transcend the flesh and manifest the Spirit in all things. Their journey urged forward by a powerful revelation. It was not in their perfection or in their struggles that their faith would shine, but in their willingness to be vulnerable, to be a community grounded in love, echoing through time as true witnesses to a grace that transforms everything it touches. And as the sun stood high, illuminating the landscape before them, a new day dawned, a day imbued with hope, bursting forth from the intimate struggle of living in the Spirit. They were now the messengers of faith, bearers of the miraculous, ready to change the world, one encounter at a time.